Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today I am in Kerch. This is the oldest city in Crimea. And I know you'd love to know a lot about this city, so come with me and let's start exploring. Let's go. Well, my friends, I can hardly believe it myself, but I finally arrived in the ancient city of Kerch, Crimea. Today, I'm thrilled to invite you to join me on a walking tour of this historical gem. Let's uncover the fascinating secrets that have been preserved here for centuries. It's no exaggeration to say that Kerch is an ancient city. Archaeological research reveals that people have inhabited these lands for an astonishing 100,000 years. In fact, scientists even discovered a mammoth tooth in the heart of Kerch. Moreover, over 60 sites belong to the Mesolithic and Neolithic epochs, offering valuable insights into the city's past. But the true history of Kerch began in the 17th century BC, when the Greek navigators established new colonies in the Black Sea region. This marked the birth of Kerch, a city that has a rich heritage spanning millennia. Can you imagine? It all started back in the 17th century BC, when immigrants from the Ionian city of Miletus found the settlement of Pantikapae. This settlement eventually grew into the largest ancient city in eastern Crimea. By 480 BC, Pantikapae had united all the Greek cities on the peninsula and the surrounding lands with the local population, giving rise to the formidable Bosporan kingdom. This kingdom stretched eastward to Novorossiysk and northward to the mouth of the Don River. In the 6th century, Kerch transformed into a fortress of Byzantium, adopting the name Bosporus. In the 8th century, the city fell under the influence of Khazar Khaganate and was known as Karsha or Charsha, which means the other side or the opposite shore in Turkic. In the late 10th or 11th centuries, the eastern part of Kerch Peninsula, along with the city of Kerch, the old Russian name Kharkiv, was likely part of the Russian Tmutarakan Principality. After the Russian-Turkish War, Kerch and the Yenikale fortress was ceded to Russia under the Kochok-Kainarji Treaty of 1774. While discussing the history of Kerch, I realized that I had been walking along Lenin Street all along. It's easy to notice that this pedestrian street is often compared to the Moscow Arbat. Previously, the street was named Vorontsovskaya in honor of Governor General of Novorossiysk and Bessarabia, Mikhail Semyonovich Vorontsov. Although it's a relatively short street, measuring only 700 meters, it's still enjoyable to stroll along it. As you walk, you can admire the stucco work and antique patterns adorning the buildings. There are benches along the street, providing a welcome respite from the heat in the shade of an alley lined with plane trees. The street is lined with shops and tall desks, making it a convenient place for visitors. In my opinion, it's a charming and cozy street. Valentin Felixovich Voynoyasnevsky, a clergyman and renowned surgeon, led a life filled with both remarkable achievements and profound tragedy. Born in Kerch in a devout Catholic family, he graduated from Kyiv University's medical faculty and served as a Zemstvo doctor. During the Russian, Japanese, and World Wars, he performed surgeries on wounded soldiers and developed a groundbreaking method of anesthesia, culminating in the defense of his doctoral dissertation on the subject and a subsequent promotion to professor. However, his life took a dramatic turn when the communists seized power. Accused of treating counter-revolutionaries in Tashkent, he faced imminent execution. This harrowing experience led him to embrace orthodoxy. This act of defiance only escalated the situation, resulting in his expulsion from Tashkent University and subsequent arrest and exile. He was repeatedly released and exiled, eventually reaching the Yenisei and then the Arctic, where he was accused of agitation in favor of the world bourgeoisie. Despite this hardship, he was eventually released and exiled once more. During the war, he was left behind, but he was later awarded the Medal for Valiant Labor. In a poignant remark, he remarked, "Such awards are bestowed upon cleaners. The leading surgeon is entitled to an order. In 1946, he was finally recognized for his scientific contributions with the Stalin Prize for his work, Fundamentals of Purulent Surgery. St. Luke, the only clergyman in the USSR to receive such an award, distributed almost all of it to orphanages. Soon, the Patriarch transferred him to Simferopol, where he, already an archbishop, continued his work. However, in 1955, Luke went blind and passed away 6 years later. Near the bust of St. Luke, there is an unusual object, a fragment of a monument fountain. It honors Vasily Yakovlevich Goshin, a merchant who performed many good deeds for his hometown. The fountain project was completed in 1903, intended to consist of 4 parts: a plinth with a bowl, a central column, a cornice, and a faceted dome. The central part was to feature a lion's head from whose mouth water would flow into the bowl. However, the marble from Italy was of poor quality, delaying the monument's production. Only a year later, in 1904, the fountain bearing Goshin's name was erected in its proper location. Remarkably, this monument was the only one to survive the revolution and the war. Only the central part of the fountain remains today. In front of the pre-revolutionary monument, a memorial plaque honors the outstanding communist Sergei Mironovich Kirov. It's an incredible neighborhood. Opposite the local post office, one of the city's most prominent landmarks is the Stele. Kerch is a hero city. Installed in 2000, this memorial sign commemorates the 2600th anniversary of Kerch. The Stele stands as an ionic column adorned with a sculpture of golden griffin holding the key to the city's gates. At the base of the stela, stars bearing the names of the hero cities of the Great Patriotic War are inscribed. Afterward, I strolled through a small park, Mira, passing by an idol fountain, straight to the bust of the renowned Russian actor Vasily Lanov, located outside the House of Culture, which is currently undergoing repairs. In 2019, the artist was honored with the title of Honorary Citizen of Kerch, and on June 12, a bust of Lanov was unveiled. I ventured further and discovered ongoing restoration work, this time focusing on the building of women's Romanov gymnasium from the mid-19th century. By the time this video was released, the repairs should have been completed. I invite the residents of Kerch to share their thoughts in the comment section. Do you find the updated gymnasium more aesthetically pleasing? Or perhaps the builders, as is often the case, fell short of meeting the specified deadlines? I'm eager to hear your opinions. My attention was drawn to a striking snow-white building with the tall columns in the Greek style. It turned out to be the Church of the Assumption of the Blessed Virgin Mary. The Roman Catholic Church has been under construction for nearly a decade. The first stone was laid in 1831, and the church was consecrated in the name of the Ascension of the Blessed Virgin Mary in March 1840. The church's design resembles a simple rectangle with a dome above the altar area. Upon a closer inspection, you can notice 2 symmetrical oval-shaped niches on the facade of the building at the entrance. These niches contain sculptures of Christ the Savior and the Mother of God, created by contemporary sculptor Alexei Umorin to replace the original ones that had been lost. Previously, life was in full swing here, but unfortunately, I couldn't get into the church because it only operates once a week and for a limited time. On the other side of the gymnasium building, there is a local art gallery. On its side wall, there is a memorial plaque honoring the heroes defenders of Kerch from the Anglo-Franco-Turkish troops of Crimean War, Mikhail Hamutov and Karl Wrangel. Since 1985, a series of paintings by the people's artist of the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic, Nikolai Bot, titled Ajimushkai 1942, dedicated to the heroic defenders of Crimea during the Great Patriotic War, has been on permanent display in the gallery building. After walking quite a bit along Teatralnaya Street, I found myself back in Mira Square and met the monument of the children of Kerch. This monument serves as a poignant reminder to all the young citizens of this city who lost their lives to the Nazi invaders due to hunger and bombing. The sculptor's attempt to capture the grief and pain of mothers whose children were taken away by the war is evident in the sculpture. The grieving figure of a mother, bowing her head and hugging a 10-year-old boy, stands on the pedestal. This structural composition, which appeared in 2003, was designed by the artist-sculptor Anatoly Savinov. In the same square, a real forged carriage has been installed, delighting visitors in the park. While I'm not sure about its cultural significance, it certainly attracts people, and it's a pleasure to take photos of it. Nearby, there is a memorial honoring the most iconic battles of World War II on the Crimean land. An eternal flame surrounded by obelisks marks the military units that heroically defended their native land. Now, you might be wondering about the monument to Lenin. Yes, he is here too. So don't worry, everything is in order. As in 1932, it was installed here and it hasn't moved anywhere. However, Lenin has undergone several changes due to various circumstances. But as you can see, the leader remains in his rightful place. And he peered so intently ahead that I couldn't resist and decided to investigate this intriguing sight. It turned out to be quite simple. The leader was meticulously gazing at a massive flagpole adorned with a grand flag, and behind it stood an elegant colonnade, seemingly transported straight from ancient Greece. It had arrived in 2022, and according to the original plan, statues of ancient Greek gods were intended to be placed beside the columns. However, under the influence of public opinion, the authorities had to abandon this idea. While the townspeople didn't appreciate this change, I can't help but wonder if adding gods to these settings was truly necessary. Or is it enough to simply admire the colonnade and the horizon where the sea beckons? As you pass through the colonnade, the sea stretches out before you, almost within reach. You just need to cross the Admiralty Passage, marvel at the enigmatic griffins guarding the path to the sea, and take a moment to appreciate another symbol of Kerch. This is a golden stater from Panticapae, a rare example of a gold coin from the city of Panticapae, which used to be the name of Kerch. Crafted in the 4th century BC, this coin was minted to pay for Scythian grain that began to be exported to mainland Greece from the Black Sea region. Gold staters quickly gained popularity due to their substantial and relatively consistent weight, 9.09 to 9.12 grams. They became a common form of trade currency for both Greeks and foreigners. The coin weighs 9.12 grams. On the obverse, you'll find an image of Satyr's head, while the reverse depicts a winged griffin holding a spear in its beak and trampling a large ear. This griffin personified the primary wealth of the region during that era, bread. In 2023, a large replica of the golden stater Panticapaeum was installed, adding to the city's rich heritage. And finally, my friends, the sea, eternal and boundless, awaits your exploration. After admiring the sea and savoring the refreshing breeze, I made my way to the iconic landmark of Kerch, the Church of John the Baptist. This is the oldest operating temple in Crimea, one of the 2 cathedrals of Feodosia Diocese of the Russian Orthodox Church. The most widely accepted theory is that the temple was constructed in the 8th or 9th century. According to a legend, Its construction commenced with the blessing of St. Andrew the First Called. During the Crimean Khanate, like most Christian churches, the Church of John the Baptist was converted into a mosque and eventually fell into disrepair. It was restored to its original Orthodox state in 1774 when Crimea was annexed to the Russian Empire. In the 19th century, vestibules and a bell tower in the Neo-Byzantine style were added to the temple. In the church courtyard, a stone block with a depression resembling a human footprint stands as a testament to a legend claiming it to be the trace of John the Baptist. The Great Patriotic War and the subsequent struggle against religious stupor in the 20th century severely damaged the temple. However, in the 1960s, fortunately, it was recognized as a monument of Byzantine culture and underwent a meticulous restoration. On June 19, 1990, the church was consecrated and services resumed. Today, it functions as a functioning church, hosting regular services. The church building is a three-apse temple with a single flat dome supported by a cruciform arches, which are further supported by 4 pillars. The entire structure is reinforced with columns crowned with Byzantine Corinthian capitals. Alternating rows of white stone and red brick were used in the masonry of the eastern part of the temple, a technique characteristic of Byzantine architecture. This technique, though not primarily for aesthetic purposes, serves as a seismic load-bearing mechanism, preventing the temple from potential earthquakes. Different bricks play the role of shock absorbers. The incredible antiquity of this structure is palpable, evoking the sense of energy and awe. The temple isn't always open, but I was fortunate enough to step inside and share with you what the oldest Orthodox church looks like from the inside. After exploring everything at the foot of the mountain, I finally went in the direction of Mount Mithridat, which rises in the center of the city. On the way to the Great Mithridate Staircase, a sculpture of a sailor met me in a small oval niche. For some reason, it is covered with gold paint from head to toe, but in some places, the paint has treacherously peeled off, exposing the inner surface of the sculpture. Well, here is the Great Mithridate Staircase. Every city has a landmark that is considered its business card, where all tourists rush first of all, and which is present in all postcards. In Kerch, this is the large Mithridate Staircase. The staircase got its name from Mount Mithridat, to the top of which it actually leads from the main square of Kerch. Mount Mithridat itself, in turn, was named after an ancient ruler of the Bosporan Kingdom. At the top of the mountain, in the place where the eternal flame now burns, its magnificent palace once stood. There are legends about the untold wealth of Mithridat to this day. It was built in 1833 to 1840 by the Kerch city architect Alexander Digby Jr. Its creation began with the massive construction and gentrification of Kerch. The Great Mithridat Staircase consists of 432 steps which are not easy to climb, but believe me, it's worth overcoming them. Panoramic views of indescribable beauty await you at the top. It is simply impossible to miss this. The large Mithridat staircase crosses two narrow picturesque streets and has 3 terraces, which are decorated with large flower pots and balustrades. Each level can be used as a kind of observation deck. Originally, the staircase was a monumental structure made of white stone with all kinds of decorations. However, during the Crimean War, the staircase was partially destroyed. The stones were taken away for the construction of houses. The sculptures of griffins were moved to the city outposts. In its original form, the staircase had only 214 steps. The upper section to the obelisk was created after the Second World War. During the construction of the staircase, a museum was erected, a replica of the Theseion, the temple of Hephaestus in Athens. The building was demolished in 1959 for no reason. In the 80s of the 20th century, the reconstruction of the Mithridat staircase was carried out. In particular, the griffin figures were returned to their place. They were made anew. The original ones were not preserved. In 2015, the Mithridat staircase simply collapsed. The arched vaults collapsed and the crypt of Demeter located at its foot cracked. After that, reconstruction work began. On June 22, 2021, the grand opening of the fully renovated Grand Mithridat staircase took place. The climb is long, but considering that you can periodically stop at the observation deck and admire the views of the Kerch Strait and the city spread out at the foot of the mountain, it's not so difficult. The higher you climb, the more majestic and large-scale the view opens up for you as a bonus, giving you the strength to go further. Climbing to the top of the mountain, I went straight to the Obelisk of Glory Memorial. This is a monument dedicated to generals, officers, surgeons, and privates of the separate Primorsky Army, sailors of the Azov military flotilla, and old soldiers who fell in the battles of the liberation of Crimea, November 1943 to April 1944. The monument was opened on October 8, 1944, and became one of the first monuments dedicated to the events of the Great Patriotic War on the territory of the USSR. It consists of a 24-meter obelisk mounted on a multi-stage pedestal. A mock-up of the Order of Glory is reinforced on the side facing the city. 3 combat cannons are installed near the stele. Nearby, there is a large memorial plaque in the form of an expanded book made of marble. The memorial plaque lists 146 heroes of the Soviet Union who were awarded the highest awards of the motherlands in the Battle of the City of Kerch, as well as a list of 21 military units awarded the honorary name Kerch. In my opinion, Mount Mithridat is one of the most recognizable sights of the city. This is an observation deck that offers an excellent view of the whole city, including the Crimean Bridge. So if suddenly fate brings you to Kerch, you should definitely get here. If you walk a little further from the memorial, you will get to another iconic place on Mount Mithridat. This is the Fire of Eternal Glory, but unfortunately, I did not find any fire there. Until recently, this object was called Eternal Flame, but in 2022, it went out. The object itself was renamed and the fire on its top is now lit only on holidays. The local authorities motivated their decision by the complexity of the facility's maintenance, saying it was difficult to deliver gas to the borough. The locals, I'm sure, were upset by this decision, but they haven't been able to change anything yet. The eternal flame on the top of the mountain Mithridat was solemnly lit on May 9, 1959, in honor of the 15th anniversary of the liberation of Crimea. Since the 60s, there has been a tradition of torchlight procession in Kerch, whose participants with burning torches walked through the city and climbed to the eternal flame on Mount Mithridate. Every citizen brought his fire to the obelisk of glory in memory of the fallen defenders of the motherland. Even earlier, in ancient times, the eternal flame burned on Mithridate in Britannia, a building where officials met, state affairs were decided, and courts were held. The building was traditionally dedicated to the goddess of the hearth, Hestia. A fire was constantly maintained here, and the Greeks who left the city took with them a particle of this fire as a symbol of the unbreakable connection with their homeland. I hope the Kerch people will be able to return the eternal flame to Mount Mithridate. Well now, the most exciting part of my walk in Kerch. Just look at the view from here. Yes, my friends, this is the ancient city of Pantikapayan, or what's left of it. I decided to go down closer and came across a small cave. The temptation to climb inside was very great, but since I was all alone, I decided not to take any chances and go further to the ancient city. Historically, Pantikapayan was located on the territory and in the vicinity of modern Kerch, the easternmost city of Crimea. Its most picturesque ruins are preserved on the northern and northeastern slopes of Mount Mithridate. The ruins of Acropolis are located about 90 meters above sea level. The Pantikapayan, which at one time occupied an area of about 100 hectares, is now a small complex of surviving fragments of ancient buildings. Thanks to the archaeological excavations, it was possible not only to determine the location of the Pantikapayan, but also to get an idea of the architectural ensemble of the ancient settlement. More than 2,000 years ago, there was an acropolis in its center, above which towered the palace of the Bosporan Spartakids. The royal residence, which existed until the middle of the 4th century BC, was located on the top of modern Mount Mithridate, surrounded by defensive structures. The palace was the dominant architectural ensemble, was a two-story building with an area of about 2,700 meters square. Archaeologists found out that the interiors of the complex were decorated with large number of other elements and columns, as well as samples of monumental sculpture. Not far from the royal residence, in the center of the sacred area called Temenos, there was a palace temple that existed before the reign of Mithridate's 6th Jupiter. And just the same, the most famous legend of Kerch tells us how the greatest ruler of the Bosporan kingdom, Mithridate's 6th Jupiter, died. Upon learning of the betrayal of Pharnax's son and not wanting to be captured, he took poison, but it did not work. Mithridates took small doses of poison from early age, fearing that someday they will try to poison him. Then the king asked his servant to stab him with a sword, which he did. There are other traditions that have been passed down by word of mouth for hundreds of years. So, in one of the legends, it is said about the founding of Pantikapayan by the Argonauts. And many people still believe in the legend of the golden horse of Mithridate. It is believed that treasures were hidden in the depths of the hill, later named Mount Mithridate in honor of the king, even during the ruler's lifetime. The main artifact of the royal hiding place is called the golden sculpture of the full-length horse. Riches and valuable historical objects hidden underground have led to numerous excavations in the area of the former Acropolis. Black diggers were the first to excavate here, because of which irreparable damage was caused to the architectural ensemble. Treasure hunters dug up artifacts for their further sale, and ordinary citizens used stones from the walls of the settlements as building material. Despite the fact that interest in the remains of Pantikapayan first arose about 200 years ago, systematic authorized excavations of the ancient settlement have been carried out only since 1945. Scientists have been searching for artifacts manually for decades and continue to discover coins, wine vessels, arrowheads, jewelries, epigraphic documents, as well as other elements and architectural structures and entire tombs. To date, the territory of the Pantikapayan is under state protection. and artifacts discovered during the excavations of the Panticapaeum are transferred to the Historical and Archaeological Museum of the Eastern Crimean Historical and Cultural Museum Reserve, open to visitors. Valuable finds from the depths of Mount Mithridat are stored not only in the local museum, but also in museums in St. Petersburg, Moscow, Cologne, London, Paris, and Munich, and other cities. An important element of the architectural ensemble of the Panticapaeum was the underground part of the city, the necropolis, which occupied about a seventh of the entire area of the polis. A complex structure was erected underground, consisting of tunnels and crypts where representatives of local authorities as well as other important persons and members of their families were buried. In such places, it's like touching ancient history, and at this moment, it doesn't seem so far away. Most of the beautiful buildings of Panticapaeum are irretrievably lost. Others are under modern quarters, but still there is a lot to see. These ancient ruins can surprise even the most fastidious tourists. I will not be deceitful. Kerch was able to pleasantly surprise me, inspire me, and leave pleasant memories. On this pleasant note, I want to end the first part of my journey through the glorious hero city of Kerch and its ancient ancestor, Pancapae. I hope it was interesting for you to walk with me and you were able to discover something interesting. I will be grateful to you for likes and reposts of my video. It helps me a lot in the development of the channel. See you in the second part, friends. Goodbye.